Welcome back, you beautiful people. It's Koga here again. Now, I have something incredibly special for you guys. I probably made the most complicated build in POE so far. Now, yes, you might think that casting damage taking builds with an auto self-cast loop is complicated, but at the end of the day, they only use a few uniques here and there, so that way you take damage when you deal damage or you ignite, and then it causes casting damage taking a proc, and then it just, shoots out a bunch of spells. To the level, yes, that can be complicated in a way that you actually mitigate the damage, but I have that in a build with an archetype that I absolutely hate, that actually works and deals an insane amount of damage and actually lives. So yes, it has meme qualities, but it's not a meme. It actually works. Let me explain. If you guys have seen my YouTube videos and or my stream, you know one thing about me is that I hate minion builds. Why do you ask? I am very complicated when it comes to making builds because I like to challenge myself, aka why I did Crackling Lance coming very soon to you. But minion builds are extremely generic in the way that you build them. The only way for you to scale the damage of a minion is by getting minion damage on the tree or minion damage gear. You cannot use fire damage to scale the fire damage of a minion. AKA, if you scale anything that does not say minion, it does not work. On top of that, they're incredibly lazy builds because they do all the work for you. Not only that, they tank everything for you. So all the dodge and all the skill-based gameplay kind of goes out the window, and I like that a lot because PoE, in its essence, is a very difficult game. I like enjoying the fact that I'm skilled enough to dodge a lot of the mechanics, not just sitting there looking like a little pretty princess while my minions do all the work for me. And yes, I'm not downplaying other people that make minion builds. I'm just saying I'm not a fan of it. Third, and probably the most important factor, and probably the least the most important factor for you guys, if that makes any sense for you guys, is I am an addict to explosions in PoE. If I can use Hero the Vice, I'm going to use Hero the Vice. If I'm playing a lightning build, I'm going to pop a Call the Brotherhood in, if I possibly can. It's not too much damage loss. Obviously, I have my standards, but I'm going to use Hero the Vice. If I need to use Impulsa, I'm going to use Impulsa. I'm going to find some way to stick an explosion mod or some form of an explosion-like thing, like Melee Splash with Flicker. With Awaken Melee Splash, you pop the entire pack, and it sounds like an explosion, and thus it's good enough for me. But at least it sounds like an explosion. I need that. That is super fun. The PoE is a game at the end of the day, and I need to have that fun. Minions don't do that because the enemy is not killed by you. So if you get anything that says enemy is killed by you, explode, like the minion chest or impulses, it doesn't work because minions are the one killing them, not you. Also works for curse on hits. You're not cursing them because you're not the one hitting them. The minion is. It doesn't work. So what do? Well, let's get into this so-called build, which actually is a minion build that has all those features that a minion build does not, and which I hate, is out the window. And I actually include everything that I like from a build into a minion build. And this is how I did it. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty stuff, if you guys enjoyed the video, please consider leaving a like for the YouTube algorithm. And if you guys want to see all the builds and content before it comes to the YouTube channel near you, please consider following me over at Twitch at twitch.tv/Kogadas if you guys want to catch me there. And consider joining the Discord community in the link down below. And with that, let's move on. Welcome back, guys. Let's go right into the gist of the build. Now, I'm going to make this video a lot more video formatted with me in front of you guys because I want to make sure that you guys understand what's happening in the build at all times because it's going to get real complicated real quick. So, as you guys already know, I wanted to make sure that my actions or what's causing the results in front of my screen, not just a minion that's doing everything for me, despite the fact that it is a minion build. On top of that, you guys already know that I'm already addicted to explosions. So I kind of wanted to mess around with this key node over here called Minion Instability. Now, what Minion Instability does is when your minion falls into low life, which is 35% of life or lower, they explode, dealing 33% of their life as fire damage to surrounding enemies. Now, the way to scale this is really just minion damage and minion life, which is incredibly easy because since we can only pick up minion nodes, a lot of the minion nodes already come with minion life and minion damage. Things like, obviously, Lord of the Dead, minion life, minion damage. Come here into Sacrifice, a lot of minion life. Even here on Spiritual Aid, not only do you get minion, damage and minion life as you go up to here, you also get minion damage affects you, and I'll go over this, why it's important very, very soon. Right? Now, nodes like Indomitable Army, we do not want to get because they have resistances, and I'll explain why. The way to make our minions go into low life is with a thing called Erendel's Embrace. What this does is it causes summon skeletons to take 30% of their maximum life per second as fire damage, kind of like an RF, but for your skeletons. Right? Not only do that, they get cover enemies in ash, which makes them take more fire damage, and they have Avatar of the Fire, which really doesn't mean anything. They just deal fire damage because 50% of their physical is now fire. That's all really what it does. Now, combine this with Infernal Legion and makes your skeletons take an additional 40% of the maximum life per second. Now they take 70% of the maximum life per second. But minions have resistances, so the way to do this is we can take a node called, over here, called Necromantic Aegis, which makes the minions have the bonuses from our shield. Thus, we can give them Maligaro's Lens. Maligaro's Lens does give them more maximum life, which is great, but most importantly, gives them AoE for the explosions and minus 50 to all resistances, making them take even more fire damage per second. Right? This is absolutely amazing because now when I summon a skeleton, they literally blow up instantaneously. Very, very nice. Now, on top of that, you can get a lot of minion life on gear using Essences of Fear. As you guys can see here, if you have anywhere in your armor or your belt, you slam this essence and you're guaranteed to get minions have increased maximum life. So with this essence, what this means now is that we can actually get increased maximum life on our helmets and our belt, as the other slots are kind of filled with unique items, and our body armor is getting a little bit complicated to craft. I'll go into it later. Another thing that we can do is, of course, cluster jewels. Now, there's a lot of cluster jewels that have minion damage and, of course, maximum life, including Feasting Fiends. Feasting Fiends gives you damage and maximum life. We got Call of Slaughter giving you damage, and this one's actually pretty cool because it gives minions that are recently summoned. So whenever you summon your minions or your skeletons, they have 30% increased movement speed, so they have a higher chance of, just zooming to the enemy in front of you and thus exploding, because you do have a bit of a delay around, I would say, half a second to a full second. It's not really noticeable. Trust me, you'll see eventually. And of course, there's Raise and Pillage. This one gives your minions a 20% chance to ignite, which is very, very important because we can give them the Combustion Skill Gem in our 6th link. And what the Combustion Skill Gem does is that when they ignite, right, it lowers their resistances by 19% fire. On top of that, it gives more fire damage to the explosion. Very, very nice. And a lot of the medium jewels over here are incredibly useful, just as Thread March gives you damage and maximum life. And Hulking Corpses gives a whopping 25% increased maximum life, and it makes our Raised Zombies have a 5% chance to taunt the enemy, thus removing the aggro from us, making us even safer. On top of that, there's Abyss Jewels. Abyss Jewels can give you life to yourself, give minions maximum life, and give you minion damage if you use a minion skill recently, which is always all the time because we're summoning skeletons like crazy. Another very cool thing that I figured out is there's a jewel called Fortress Covenant. It gives you a whopping, let's see here, 35 to 45% increased minion damage off of one node. And it gives you a chance to block, which is, you might think is bad for the skeletons, but we do have other minions, and I'll go with that very shortly. Again, it's going to get complicated. The only downside, it says notable passive skills and radius are transferred to instead grant minions take 20% increased damage. Now, that sounds really good at the beginning because that means our minions will degen faster, but it removes whatever notables are nearby, and thus we have to pick those up, which is very inefficient in terms of points. So it's not a good idea, and we have other minions that we want to keep alive. I'll go over that very quickly. So this is a very cool trick. If you put this jewel into a cluster jewel, it removes the radius, so you keep the 40% increased minion damage and the chance to block, which is very nice for our other minions, but we don't actually get the minions take 20% increased damage and replacing all our notables nearby, because this does not work on cluster jewels. The way I can prove this is, thanks to over here, Spiritual Aid, I'm affected by minion damage, right? As you guys can see here, my DPS for my Orb of Storms is 5,478. If I remove it, now it's 5,120. Put it back, we're back at 5,478. Meaning it does affect us, despite the fact that the radius isn't working. Big brain plays. Very, very nice. I highly recommend you guys do that. So that leaves us with our ascendancy of choice, obviously being a Necromancer for obvious reasons. For a Necromancer, give you minion damage, and if we pick up Unnatural Strength, we get +2 to minion skill gems, which is absolutely amazing for all our minions in our build. On top of that, picking up Bone Barrier gives minions 20% more maximum life, not just increased. It's a more multiplier, which is absolutely insane. On top of that, we get increased recovery rate of life and energy shield per minion. Since we have more than 10 minions, we get 20% increased recovery rate of life, and we get additional physical damage reduction, which comes in very, very nicely. We're going to go into that real quickly. Last thing, we have Plague Bringer. This is the only thing that really works out of all the other ones, and it's the most trickiest thing to, function. And I wanted this very, very badly. Reason being, it says if you consume the corpse recently, you and your minions have 30% increased area effect. We want AoE because the clear of the explosions is not that good. So I did fix it with another method, but we still want this AoE for that other method. I'll go over that very quickly. Right? With at least one nearby corpse, we also deal 10% more damage, which does affect the explosion of the skeletons. And we take 10% reduced damage, which of course is good for defense, and is very, very nice. So here's a problem. If you consumed a corpse recently, you have 30% increase area effect, and you need a corpse nearby to get 10% more damage. If you're fighting Shaper or anybody that doesn't have a lot of ads, how are you going to get corpses near you? Here's a cool trick. If we use a hardbound loop, right, every time our skeletons die, we take damage. And since we take damage, I can put a cast from damage taken gem with Desecrate and Flesh Offering. So every time that we cast, right, we have a Flesh Offering pop up, right, and every other one, we have Desecrate on the floor. We can use that Desecrate to summon our zombies. We have a total of, let me cast 2 more times. Total of 8 zombies. Now, these zombies are then linked with Elemental Army. That way, when they deal damage, right, they, apply 10%, minus 10% to the elemental resistances, matching the highest damage type taken by the enemy. Since we do a lot of fire damage, and I do have, this Abyssal Jewel over here, where minions deal an additional fire damage, and the enemy's resistances is reduced a lot by fire, right? They're going to deal majority fire damage. They're actually going to reduce the res of the monster by, 10%. And since they taunt, they're also going to aggro the boss, which is very nice, right? We also put minion life, so they stay alive. And then we can put Feeding Frenzy. So they're going to aggressively attack the boss, taking the aggro, making sure they apply the minus 10% resistances, and Feeding Frenzy will then give us a buff that makes us do more minion damage, which does affect the AoE and the explosion, not the AoE, the explosion damage of, minion instability. Very, very nice. And when we have more minions, of course, we have increased recovery rate of life and reduced damage taken, because it's physical damage taken, as you guys see here, right? We have this one right here, increased physical damage reduction. And since the ring does have 350 physical damage taken, this goes a long way. We also have a Carrion Golem, right, by itself, which has a lot of life. You guys can see here, it has with 1 gem, 51,000 maximum life. Our zombies are sitting at 66,000 life per zombie, which is absolutely insane. They rarely ever die. And the only reason they kind of die is because we have minus 50% resistances. And even with that, they rarely die. And we can always summon them again because we always summon a limited number of corpses due to our ring. Right? But here's the downside. We do take damage, and that alone is not enough damage to, sustain the ring and the auto cast loop. So what we can do to sustain this, if you guys didn't read, Maligaro's Lens says nearby allies recover 1% of their maximum life when you die. Since we have necromantic ages, this applies to our skeletons. So every time that our skeleton dies, we recover HP. And as you guys can see here, I basically take no damage. But this is not enough. What you actually have to do is we pick up Mind Over Matter. Since minion builds don't really have anything that scales with, their auras. Of course, you can use Aspect as a spider, but even then, we don't really need it. What I instead did is just take Mind Over Matter, right, to have more life pool. That way, the portion of the damage that I'm taking from the ring goes to my mana. Right? Very, very nice. However, there's a downside to this. If I summon my skeletons over here and I move away from the nearby, from this, from the shield, as you guys see here, I do start taking damage. So if I start popping a lot, I start taking considerable amount of damage, which is very, very bad. The way we can mitigate this is, of course, using a granite flask. As you guys can see here, I take a granite and I basically take no damage, and I just, regen the rest of it, due to my natural regen, which is very, very nice. Which that also means that if I were to take damage, right, from a boss, if I pop my granite flask, as you guys can see here, I can actually use the skeleton exploding to heal me, since the damage from the ring doesn't do any damage due to my, physical mitigation due to the necromantic, to the necromancer, ascendancy and the granite flask. It actually heals me instead of damaging me, which is absolutely insane. And we could further improve upon this with, over here, we have the Bone Barrier, or Bone Armor, actually. Bone Armor gives me and my minions, 2,200, kind of like a life of shield. And that does, block the explosion from the skeletons and the damage from the ring, right? So as you guys see here, pop it, Bone Armor, and you see it's still 977. It did take damage, but I barely took any. And this is very cool because if I'm running out of mana, I can go down here into Dynamo. And since Bone Armor is a guard skill, if I, run out of mana, you guys over here, let me just keep running out of mana, right? Bone Armor would actually regen my HP back up. Now, on a very quick note, in addition to Dynamo, we also have Battle Rouse, which states, 10% of the damage taken is gained as mana over 4 seconds when hit. Well, Heartbound Loop is considered a hit, so every time that we take damage when our summoned skeletons die, we actually regenerate a portion of that mana back due to Battle Rouse. And so you guys can see here the life regen. I have no life, right? Let me, keep taking damage. Right? Once I go close range, I pop my granite. I actually heal. And just like that, if you play correctly, which is where kind of the skill comes in, if you pop bone armor and or granite flask, you actually heal the damage so that you can actually use it to heal. Just make sure that you're near your, your army or your skeletons. Don't summon them from afar. So you should never die. Honestly, you should never die because trust me, you will always live if you play this correctly and you don't mess up. And trust me, it rarely happens because you don't take that much damage. Even if you were, you would have to be extremely reckless and not realize that you're taking damage. And you always have a life pot and a mana pot to, help sustain. But we can take this even a step further. So we know that we cannot affect the damage, like we don't deal any really damage because of minion. Our minions doing all the damage. How can we support our minions the best? We already have Elemental Army. We already have Combustion, reducing their fire res. You can also take a helmet with the Warlord, influence and get nearby enemies have -9 fire res, which does affect the explosion. Also, since the skeletons have Avatar the Fire, not me, I can get Elemental Equilibrium, summon an Orb of Storms that does only lightning damage, as you can see here. Summon Orb of Storms, they get hit with lightning damage, and I remove the res by an additional -50%. So now we have -19 from Combustion, -9 from the helmets, and -50 from Elemental Equilibrium. Again, it doesn't stop there. We also have a buff-ass freaking Animate Guardian. As you guys can see here, he's probably wearing something incredibly unique. Of course, since he has -50 all res from the shield, we want to make sure he stays alive as often as possible. He's equipped with Victorio's Flight, so we can get an additional 10% movement speed, as you guys can see here. You and your allies have increased movement speed. On top of that, is using the equipment, the axe, the twin-headed axe, that is a combination of Soul Taker and Heartbreaker, which gives us Fortify, so we take even less damage from these explosions from the skeletons. You guys can see here, I barely take damage either way, and so it helps sustain that. On top of that, we do have Culling Strike. And since we do use Orb of Storms, and it does give Culling Strike to our minions, so they can actually Culling Strike for us, it is insane at the end of the day. The rarity is additional and stuff like that, but the crit multi, since we don't crit, doesn't really matter. So this is absolutely insane. But even better, we do have a Belly of the Beast on him to give him more maximum life. And if you guys can see here, he's wearing a unique little, face mask here with ice and fire. And it's called the Eye of Malice shield. Not shield, helmet. What makes this so unique is that it increases the cold and fire resistance of any nearby enemy. You might think this is really bad. Well, except if you do a little bit of math. Right? If we do a little bit of math, it increases it. Basically, it's a multiplier of 1.5 times. But what happens when you multiply a negative number by 1.5? It becomes even more negative. So we already know that we have -19 fire res from our combustion, -9 from our helmet, -10 from Elemental Army, -50 from, of course, our Elemental Equilibrium. We stuck at 0.88%. But that's not just all, right? We do have a flammability in a Profane Proxy, as you guys can see here. This Profane Proxy makes one of my summon skitterbots, which of course are minions at the end of the day.
When I'm ready, and not before.
Right? And it makes the chilling one, because I put it on the left side, now apply a curse. And this is super important in multiple ways. So not only does it reduce the res by an additional 47, and that's reduced by, their effectiveness of curses. So we know it's 1/3, so 47 divided by 3. It's about, let's put it 15% plus the 88. So they have -103 resistances, right? But, we do know that Shaper and the Guardians have, their own 50% resistances. So let's just, subtract that. So really, we're removing the res by -50, so they're -53 right now. But the Eye of Malice makes that times 1.5. So really, their resistances are -80. So it just gave us an additional, 25 or 26% additional fire pen, which is absolutely insane. And it's on our damn Animate Guardian, making him like the insane Aura bot damage-wise. He's literally like a curse bot, Aura bot. Insane. And he has literally one of the most insane amount of HP. He has 104,000 HP. The only thing that has killed him so far was a very like at the end of Animate what does it call it? The Hall of Grandmasters. That was the only thing that ever killed him one time, right? That is it. Nothing else has been able to kill him, and now it's because I was incredibly unlucky. Because even if he does take damage, since we have the shield, it says allies. Since our minions are allies, our skeletons dying can heal our Animate Guardian and of course our zombies. Now our Animate Guardian of course has minion life to keep him alive, meat shield, so he's always near us, so he always gives us buffs and it gives us more life, and an elemental army, that way he gets additional resistances due to the fact that our shield reduces the res. And you think it stops there, right? Well, then we come to our last problem. The last problem is our clear's kind of but we can fix it. So you guys already know that I love explosions, but it's an issue. Since explode mods dictate that you have to be the one killing things, it says, you know, enemies killed by you, not the minions, explode. It doesn't really work in a build like this because we're not killing things, our minions are. So how can we fix this? Well, there's a glove called Asenath's Gentle Touch, where it says you curse enemies on hit, which yes, I know it doesn't work, but it says enemies near corpses affected by your curses are blinded, and then of course enemies killed near corpses affected by your curses explode. It doesn't say that the enemy has to be killed by you. It just says the only prerequisite is that the corpses have to have curses that are inflicted by me to then explode. So how can we do this? Well, by using summon skitter bots, right? Which don't worry, even though we're reserving HP by the rule of mind over matter, in order for our mana to go to not go first in our life, what we have to do is just make sure that our mana is about 43% of our life. So since our life is 4,125 times 0.43, we're sitting at 1,773 minimum life pool that we need, and we have 1,800, which is perfectly, you know, good enough for me. We're gonna have a really good balance, despite the fact that we're reserving 35% of our mana pool. We can then use summon skitter bots with a profane proxy. Profane proxy dictates where it gets +3 to Saga Curse, which is very nice, right? And your chilling skitterbot aura applies instead of the chill or the shock, depending which ring slot you put in, it instead applies the curse. In this case, we put it in our left, so it no longer chills. We keep the shock, so it does more damage. Our explosion does, right? Which is very, very nice. And what this means now is we can put flammability for more, you know, damage.
When I'm ready.
But this also means that it also goes and affects Asenath's Gentle Touch, where now that our little summon skitterbot is cursing for us, it does make those corpses have a curse and thus does proc Asenath's Gentle Touch, giving my dream of having a minion build that thus explodes things. Like that.
I withstood your Inquisition, Exile,
and now we have a minion build that explodes everything like a damn maniac. And oh my god, was this build a fucking dream come true for somebody like me who wanted a minion build to play that I dictate, you know? Just listen to the sound of that, bro. Oh, it's just so nice. Right, and you're probably missing one key detail, right? You forget that Summon Skeletons has a Vol. Where is this over here? Summon Skeletons has a Vol. Whoa, I'll tell you what though. You guys can see here? A Vol Summon Skeletons. When I summon Vol Summon Skeletons, it summons an army of skeletons that then explode, and also summons a general. It's a very big behemoth skeleton, and oh boy, does he have a lot of life. I'm talking a lot of life. We're talking a lot of life. So let's rush through this boss over here, right? Let's make sure that we have our zombies, you know, decked out, because I just noticed my zombies are not activated. Right, so that's one of the bosses there. You can see the damage. This is with a 5 link, by the way. Right, we can then put concentrated effect instead of increase AoE. Let's go to our chicken over here. Summon skeletons, and boom, you saw that one big hit. That one big hit. Let's heal. That one big hit was the summon, the general. That's the Vol Summon Skeletons summons, and it's absolutely insane the amount of HP that guy has. You're going to see some bosses just take the fattest chunks. So there you have it. We basically have a minion build that basically has explosions, that makes enemies explode like I wanted to, deals an F ton of damage you're going to see right now, and I can control. And it's super unique because not only do I have a bunch of minions that are defenses, I have a spellcast loop that gives me more AoE and more damage. I'm pretty tanky with mind over matter. I have summon skitterbots cursing for me, activating Asenath's Gentle Touch. it can get more complicated with this, especially with an Animate Guardian with 100k HP. And he's basically a cursed bot, or a bot. Culling Strike bot, I guess you can say. And with that, guys, since I have not seen anybody even make a build like this one other than Maffle, but it's not as crazy as mine, I officially choose to call this build of mine the Skelly Bomb Squad. Don't at me. It's my name. Don't take it from me. So, this is the Skelly Bomb Squad in action. Chase his ass. Chase him. Something there, Calling strike. Fuck, I'm gonna call this right. Oh, we got an awaken orb. Yeah, it was really clean. The damage is great, dude. The damage is really fucking good. And that pretty much covers the build. Yes, I will make a build guide for this. This is not really a build guide, more of a theory craft showcase, build showcase, whatever you want to call it. It is a incredibly unique build, and I want to show you guys all the nuances that I actually detailed out and thought about in this build to make it function the way that it does. So I hope you guys appreciate the effort that I put into this build. If you guys like the video, if you guys haven't done so yet, please leave a like. But yeah, with that, a build guide will be coming soon for this video. And Crackling Lance, of course, build guide for that is also coming soon because that's already wrapped up and done. So look out for those. I hope you guys enjoy, you know, the content as per usual. And I'll catch you in the next informative video or build guide. Peace out. What the fuck? He's dead, right? He's dead, right? Yeah, he's dead. He's stuck, dude.